At the age of 51, he suddenly died of a massive heart attack. My mom was a widow with 2 teenage kids. That changed our whole life overnight.
Life changes us, but healing begins when we understand what we've been carrying. Life has a way of changing us in an instant. A divorce, the loss of someone we love, a diagnosis, a moment we never saw coming. As single parents, we often so focused on holding everything together that we don't realize how much we are carrying inside. And our children may be carrying more than we know too. Sometimes those emotions stay with us for years, quietly shaping how we think, how we respond, and how we move through life. But what if healing does not begin by pretending we're okay? What if it begins by understanding what we've been carrying all along? Today's conversation is a powerful reminder that while we can't change our past, we can choose how we heal from it.
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible.
Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Deepak Chari. He is a co-founder of the Chari Center of Health, engineer, certified biofeedback specialist, and creator of his Life Transformation Technology program with advanced voice biofeedback technology. Deepak also grew up in a single parent home. Welcome, Deepak. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me on your show, Irina.
Thank you. So please share with us, how did you become, I guess, how your parents became single parents? And it was your mom or your dad?
So it was my mom that was left. So, we had a very close family. My parents came from India. So I was a first generation kid, my sister and I. So very loving. And I was very attached to my father. Of course, mother, of course. Nurturing was mother. Father was more the guidance and the studying and that kind of thing. So we used to do all kinds of activities together. So there was a lot of closeness there. So, and then as I became into my pre-teens and early teens, every morning, like I would give my father, I didn't realize had high blood pressure. And the reason I found out later on, I didn't know as a kid, is that he had a really horrible boss. But he had horrible bosses throughout his whole life, maybe because of a new immigrant to the country. He came in the early 60s, or in the 1960 or so. So it was different. I wasn't born at that time, but it was different, I think, for him at that time. So a new person in this new country. So he had all these very horrible bosses who were bullying, which is what I had that pattern in my life. That's why I created this whole system for advanced voice biofeedback from my own experience. But my father had it originally, and this pattern. And so he didn't say anything. He just tolerated all of that, let's say, verbal kind of abusive language and controlling. He didn't question anything. Whatever he was told to do, he did it. He didn't want to go against the system, so to speak. And then he would go to another, be promoted, but still have another horrible boss. And then be promoted, still have another horrible boss. So I think all this took a toll on him. So he went to his doctor, and his doctor said, you should take these high blood pressure medicines because his blood pressure was high, and other medicines too. And so I said, okay, this will help him. So every morning I would make his coffee and I would give him his blood pressure medicine. So this seemed to be okay. And he was a guiding force also for me in my studies because I wasn't always a focused kid. So, and I was bullied myself, which I never told them about. And so I would, follow whatever he said. And sometimes he was pretty strict also, I have to say. But, I wouldn't be allowed to go outside a lot because I had to study all the time. So anyway, I would give him his medications. And then suddenly I noticed he was getting weaker and he had a lot of breath a lot of the times. And then one day what happened when I was a teenager, he suddenly had a heart attack at home. So we called an emergency. I was disconnected that nothing could happen to my father. This must be just some unusual thing. Then he was in the hospital for almost a month. And so he kind of I used to be so dependent on him also, Irina, like for everything. How do I solve this problem? How do I do this? I was so dependent on him, and maybe too dependent. And so what happened is when he was in the hospital, I went to ask him questions, true story. And he said he kind of just was not really responding to me. So I felt very alone and detached. How come he's not responding? He kind of said, you know what? I think he must have thought, if I'm so giving everything to this boy, if I'm not here, what is he going to do? He's going to be dependent on a father who's not here. I didn't know that at the time, and he didn't want to tell me that. So then suddenly what happened, at the age of 51, he suddenly died of a massive heart attack later on, after he came back from the hospital. And that was it. And so then my mom was a widow with 2 teenage kids. And I was like shocked, like, oh my God, my whole world is on him. If I have any questions, I couldn't ask my mom because she was a homemaker, and she was a wonderful mom. And thank God she was there, because whenever we came home from school, she was there. I know many people don't even have a mom, but she couldn't help me in anything that I had. So I became very depressed. I said, oh my God, the only force I had to depend on is not here. That was my situation. For my mother, however, I can't even imagine what it was like, because she was very dependent on him, and he was the main person earning for the home, and he was not there now, and she was not earning at all. So that changed our whole life overnight.
Oh, wow. Incredible. What were some of the challenges you faced as a child? You said you were a teenager.
Yeah. So when I was growing up as a kid, first of all, from the age of 8 or 9, I was bullied as a kid because I was a very reclusive bookworm, and there wasn't anyone really like me, so to speak. So I was kind of bullied around. So my safe place, because I was a bookworm, was the library. I would hide in the aisles of the library and go from different aisles to avoid certain people. And so since I was there, I had a lot of time there, and I was also not in school, I was grabbing books from the shelf. And the books I ended up grabbing on this shelf were books that ended up motivating me. The Law of Attraction, How to Win Friends, Influence People, As a Man Thinketh, books by Dr. Joseph Murphy, and many other wonderful books. So those books like How to Win Friends, Influence People, How to Increase Your Confidence was helping me to get my own self-esteem up when I didn't have any at all. So I could face the world, So that's what I was doing. And I never told my parents any of this. But then at home, what I didn't realize, Irina, my father was also being bullied. You see, that's where I got that pattern. So he didn't bully me, but he was a very strict father. But he was being bullied, but he never told that to anyone. Just like I never told my story to anyone. But then I saw what happened to him, gone like this. And they could have said it's a medical condition, it's heart attack and that heart failure. But he didn't really have anything like that before. So suddenly that happened. That's why my sister and I, when this happened, we looked at each other and we said, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Could this be prevented from happening to anyone else? We said that. And fast forward many years later, when we were in our late 20s, we formed the Chari Center of Health. Chari is my last name, in tribute to our father who died at such a young age, because we wanted to prevent this from happening to anyone else. We created an integrative medical functional center that does natural therapies versus the conventional that will help get people into a healthier place. And that's what my sister did, inspired by my father passing at such a young age. So this is what we found is, my goodness, anxiety, stress, internalized, not expressed, can lead to this, no matter what medications you're taking, apparently, the pharmaceutical approach at least. But of course, these could be reversed. So that's what started me on this journey. Like, oh, wow, we have to be aware of these things. But then I know my mom was probably under a lot of stress too, right? Because she was raising 2 teenage kids. She didn't have a job and there was no income coming in at all. So, but she didn't express that to us directly, but I could tell in her there was so much tension, and we could feel that energy from her, though she was very nurturing. So she was trying to work any side job she could. I was trying to do whatever I could as a kid when I was a teenager. But, it was a struggle, honestly.
Yeah. What were some of the good things that happened? Well, I guess as a result, you were able to create this
Sure.
amazing Chari
Yeah.
Center to do
Very good things,
holistic.
actually, even though it didn't seem like it at the time. So fast forward. So I became an engineer because my father was an engineer. And I was getting all his advice and support from him, but then he transitioned. So I had to depend on myself now. I had no one to ask now. So I went to be an engineer. And in fact, the dean of engineering college, because I'm talking about this bullying pattern here, I said, I would like to be an engineer. And he said, I don't think you have what it takes to be an engineer. I think you're better suited on the other side of campus in that building. Well, the only building that I knew that he was referring to is the theater department. So in other words, I said, oh, so I know which building you're talking about. You want me to be an actor rather than an engineer? And he said, well, without saying it, he basically said yes. So I said, I'm going to show you. I will be the best darn engineer you ever saw, exceeding anyone. You can't stop me, okay? I was 18 or something at that time. And so I said, blah, 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 blah. So I got my bachelor's and my master's degree in engineering because of him saying that, actually. But so then I was improving productivity, efficiency in all the companies I was working in. But then meanwhile, my sister became a medical doctor, and we formed a partnership for the Chari Center of Health to help people get on natural solutions for medical issues. So I saw all the people she was healing, Irina. I said, my gosh, she's transforming their life. They would have, like what happened to our father, they would have not been here, all those people, if she found a natural solution for them. I also would like to do that. Natural, safe way versus the pharmaceutical approach. It didn't work for my father. But how can I do anything? I'm an engineer. Because my professor said you can't be, I said, I'm going to be an engineer. But now I would like to heal people like she's doing. How can I do that? So remember, I read those books on the law of attraction when I was hiding from all those bullies in the library. So I remembered that. I said, okay, universe, please help me to work in our own center to somehow heal people like my sister's doing, even though I don't have a medical degree. That's literally how I worded it, just so like that. 2 weeks later, some friends came up to me and said, Deepak, this guy's going to be speaking in Santa Monica, California. We lived in San Diego, California at the time, about how your voice reflects your limiting your emotions, your limiting beliefs, your negative thoughts, your self-sabotage patterns, guilt, shame, anything. But most importantly, how certain frequencies could be sent to that person uniquely to release that limiting emotional pattern, regardless of how long they've had it or how much they suffered. So I was very excited about that. I listened to his presentation and I was so inspired. I went up to him and I said, I would like to learn, an apprentice from you, what you're doing with this software and technology. He said, okay, I will only take on one more person to apprentice and I'm not going to do any more after that. I didn't realize he had his own health conditions, but he didn't share that in the beginning. So I was fortunately included in. So I learned everything he taught. And then I said, can I do something with this engineering degree? So I said, maybe I can improve what he did. That's what I did in all these companies. So I streamlined things, made things more efficient, cut some steps, and got even faster results than he did. So then after that, I said, I better work on myself now that I can work in our center, I better clear my own pattern. Can it be even cleared? And I found out, I worked on myself. I felt a sense of peace and relief, which is what happens when you release any kind of limiting pattern with this soft technology. And then I said, I wonder what will happen. I had horrible people around me, Irina. Negative, narcissistic, controlling, manipulative, condescending, bosses, supervisors, classmates, friends, and even relationships. I would leave them, get new relationships, and they would all be the same, and friends and all that. So I said, okay, this must be how life is, right? But once I cleared that pattern, those horrible people around me, they didn't want to be around me anymore. They said, we don't want to be around you, Deepak. I said, I'm going to lose these horrible people in my life? Well, I thought it's better to have horrible people than no horrible people. But soon after that happened, all these wonderful, nurturing, loving, caring, supportive people came in my life. My father never experienced that, but I was experiencing that. I didn't even know what that's like. What is it like to have a caring, compassionate person? And I said, my gosh. And this gave me another insight, which your listeners and viewers may like to hear. Even if you had so much trials and tribulations, suffering, horrible people in your life over and over again, negative situations, you can have that life you desired. You can have those people in your life you desired, even if you don't even know what that's like, even if you don't know what it's like to be loved. So that's what happened with me. So then I started working on one person after another till hundreds of people all over the US and world, because this work is done remotely, that I could help. And it started with my own journey of the challenges I went through.
Amazing. I love it. So incredible. And that you were able to, from a negative experience, you were able to create something positive. If you were to go back in the past, would you do anything differently?
If I were to go in the past, well, knowing what I know now, which I didn't as a kid, because you see what happens. Let me say this real quick. From age 0 to 12, whatever is said to you, you accept like the gospel truth, especially, and I know you're also aware of this, from age 0 to 7, whatever is said to you, you don't even question it. So if a parent, unfortunately, my father, though he was very strict, you better study, you cannot go outside and play. So that was one of his restrictions. So I was a bookworm all the time. But some parents are even much more like, you don't deserve anything. You'll never amount to anything. Why can't you be like that other person? Look how smart, intelligent, and talented they are. I guess you didn't get the talent in the family. I wasn't even ready to have you as a kid. You know that? So what is the message to the kid? I was not wanted. I was not loved. My parents don't even know how to love me. Maybe I don't deserve love. These are the messages we get. And that's what duplicates into your life. And that's why those patterns keep appearing in your life. These are unconscious patterns. 95% of our mind is unconscious. So if I had, since I was a kid, I didn't know that I was being programmed at the time. If I had known what I know now, I would have said to my dad, Dad, you're looking very unhappy. He did mention he had a very rough boss, but he didn't say too much about it. But I would have said, look, you don't need to tolerate this horrible person. You need to leave this job. You need to really get acknowledged for who you are and your talents. Don't tolerate this. This is abuse. This is not right. I would have probably said something like that. Would he have left? I'm not sure, because I would have been a kid, but I would have said that very adamantly. But I knew he had a tough boss and was going through that, but I didn't understand the magnitude of that. I also didn't understand that anxiety and stress, when not released, can accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, and then boom, lead to something that can be really intense, like a sudden heart attack for no reason, just like that. And in spite of all the medications and all I gave him, because this is what I realized: if you don't face whatever is challenging, even if it's horrible, like awareness is the first step, I found, Irina, then the pattern will continue and only increase. You need a way to diffuse it. And that's why I created this whole system that no matter, even if someone was going through all of that all the way to this time, you can clear that emotional charge. This is the concept. If you had a charge, like someone was mean and bossy, bullying, or just horrible and negative to you, and you don't release it, even from the age of a kid, that just projects forward that energy, that heat. It doesn't, people think, Deepak, time heals all wounds, right? We've all heard that, right? Not true. Not what I've seen, Irina. The energy of the unresolved emotion, depression, grief, sadness, anger, frustration, unresolved, guilt, shame, regret, projects forward and accumulates on the previous emotions that weren't cleared. And then it gets to what I call a breaking point, which is what my father's had. And then boom, everything collapses. It can lead to sudden physiological issues that have no explanation, suddenly like that. But if we discharge whatever had accumulated, which is what I do, then everything is back to ground zero. The person's health rejuvenates mentally, emotionally, and they also, most importantly, have a different view of what they used to be before. In other words, instead of tolerating the abuse, they'll say, you know what? I deserve better than this, or I can make better decisions than I did before. Because instead of saying, I'm stupid, why did I do that? Why did I get in this horrible relationship? They'll say, okay, I made an unresourceful decision, but I know better now what I really want. And it's okay. I learned. I became a stronger person because of that. My character developed. So actually, what they did to hurt me made me stronger. Their attitude, when I work with them, shifts like that. On their own, they say this. And then you start drawing to your life wonderful people and even wonderful situations on autopilot.
Totally. Yes, you're so right. When we accumulate, because energy does not disappear, it just transfers from one state to the next. And yes, when we don't release those, and every time there is a trigger, we just pile up inside of us different emotions, layer after layer, and then you get an explosion because we need to release the emotions. All emotions are good in the sense they produce a result. And if we don't like the result, we got to change. We're going to change the habit. But in emotions, we got to release them. We got to get them out of our system. And there are amazing techniques like yours. Or if you're angry, go play some tennis. You can get all that out. So it's important to release the negative emotions so they don't get stuck, because then our body is always sending us little signals, and when we don't listen, it escalates, and then we have this huge explosion because we weren't listening to the tiny little bells. Body was talking to us. We weren't paying attention. So it give us bigger and bigger amplified events. Finally, pay attention now. And we gotta, be aware of that and be accepting of that. And oftentimes we just go through life, I guess, with a blinders on. If something is not so dire, we don't even ask to go, maybe I need to look at this. We just keep sweeping things under the rug without realizing how big it could become if we don't address it. So
Exactly.
Totally agree with you. When it comes to single parenting, do you have any advice to single parents who are raising kids now? From your perspective, a child, what do you wish was done maybe better? What would you wish your mom would have told you when you were a teenager, if you could had a chance to go back in the past? Or any kind of advice that you would recommend for single parents who are raising kids now?
Well, my mom did the best she could in the situation, I think, for her personality. She had education only up to a certain level. And you know the interesting thing, Irina, and I'll answer that in more depth. I think my mom didn't have she was a very loving, sweetest mom on earth, but she didn't believe in herself. That's what I found. And so what happened is in a young age, remember I had that bullying pattern in my life? My father had it in his life. That's how I got it. But my mother did too. Only later on in life, she told me this. When she was a young kid, these young girls would blame her for something she didn't do. They would create chaos in the classroom. They would blame her, and she would get punished very severely by the teacher or other people. And so she was so humiliated by that and all the negative stories they would tell about her because they were jealous of her talent. She was a phenomenal Indian classical dancer. But other girls, I guess, were jealous of her. So they wanted to squash her. So and they tormented her and bullied her. So she would hide out. And she decided not to go to school after the age of 11 years old, 11, 12. So she didn't get all the education she could have gotten because of fear of them. Can you imagine? And I had the feeling of, my gosh, just because of her fear of being bullied, she didn't go to school and get educated like she could have been. She could have been a top engineer or scientist or so brilliant. Of course, she still was anyway, but I'm saying that application, just because she didn't believe in herself and she was scared of these bullies and tormented by them. That's where this pattern came for me. And it also goes back even to your grandparents, by the way, which I do with this work. I track it back even to that level and clear it from that level. So what happens is it doesn't repeat again in your life. You're free, you're liberated, and you create your own pathways. So going back to my mother, if I could do it again, if I understood how she was bullied, which she didn't only tell me till much later on in life, I would have said, Mom, look, I know you didn't go to school because you were so scared of everyone. But even though this happened with Dad, that he passed away at such a young age, I will support, and I did do whatever I could to help her, but I want you to believe in yourself. You can even get a better job than you are doing here. You can really achieve something, inspire. You can do it. I know you didn't believe in yourself, but you can do it. You want to speak to women's groups. You want to inspire women. You want to be your own pioneer. You can do this. I would tell her something like that to believe in herself and all of that. But as a kid, I didn't know the full in depth of it. That's what I would tell. So single parents, just believe, really trust, like, okay, I know I went through this challenging situation, but just trust in yourself. And the other thing is, kids will kind of pick up your fear and your worry. So it's not that you have to hide from them, but just be open and honest with them. I feel like if my mom said to me, she kept it inside because she didn't want to belabor us like what her father did. He didn't tell all the stress he was under. But if she just said, Deepak, I'm really anxious about all this, but you know what? We're going to get through it. Don't worry. We're going to get all through it. We'll work as a team. But, I'm trying to run the household and I'm just, I'm not sure exactly what to do, but you know what? We're going to get through it. Don't worry. I just want to be open with you. In other words, just be open and honest with what you're feeling. I'm not saying at the same time you should dump everything on the kids, because then the kids will say, I have to become the parent. Because I've worked on clients where they're actually the parents. You may have seen that too with your experience. But then that's a burden that's put on the kids. But just enough that, look, I'm not hiding anything from you. I'm being open and honest from you. And then the kid will feel, well, then I can be open and honest with you too, Mom. You see, I didn't tell my mom anything because she didn't tell me. I'm being bullied like crazy my whole life. And I'm getting all this, so the parents just be open to what the kid is sharing with them, even if it's a challenge and even if it's heavy, but be supportive. And even if you're stressed with what they're going through, just say, okay, I'll play tennis or I'll just release the stress in some way, but I will acknowledge them, support them, and just show my love to them. That's all the kid wants.
Totally. You're so right. Kids can pick up again on energy, the kind of vibes we are putting out. So if we are miserable as single parents, the kids can be miserable as well. So we gotta create habits that allow us to thrive, to make us happy, to find that resilience, but also being open. And I think it's important, because if you show vulnerability to your kids, that they can show their vulnerability with you, like you said. Otherwise, it's difficult. Is there any book that you've read that kind of inspired your journey that you would wish more people knew about or would want to learn?
Well, when I was stuck in the library, there were so many books that were inspirational to me. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Those were good. But As a Man Thinketh really had one of the most impacts on me, because as you think and believe about yourself, that's how your world revolves. And thus, this work I'm doing is with advanced voice biofeedback technology is actually based on that concept, because your whole world is based on how you think, even if you're not fully aware of what you're thinking. Because, as you know, 95 to 99% is your subconscious mind, things you're not aware of. Every sight, sound, feeling, thought, and emotion in every fraction of a second is stored in your subconscious. You may not remember it, but trust me, it's there. And certain events in your life have a charge to them, sometimes high, sometimes extreme. I can actually quantify that with my work from the voice. And that, if you don't deal with that, if you don't face it, even if you're scared to face it, or if you're sad to face it, or angry to face it, it's just going to accumulate. But not only face it, you have to release it somehow. And the way I do it in my modalities with the voice, and the reason is, in my work and research, I found your voice is the most accurate reflection of your perception of the world, which is primarily from your subconscious mind. You cannot, in other words, hide anything from it. Like if someone tried to hide, and I don't know why they would need to, but if they tried to hide something from me, like, for example, and this actually happened. I asked this lady who came to work with me, she said, I'm feeling a little bit anxious, a little bit upset, but not too bad. And, I'm okay. So I just want to release that. But in her voice, the meter went to the farthest right, and it showed anger, frustration, rage, injustice. So I said, just be open with me, because I listen to voices for a living. I know you're actually rageful and really upset about injustice. Just tell me, what is it really? Then she paused and she said, okay, you want to know the truth? My boyfriend of so many years just dumped me like that just a week ago. Can you believe that? What a jerk he is. We're going to have a long-lasting relationship. And 2 weeks before that, my boss fired me from a job, and my other friend got the promotion that I should have got. She betrayed me. Can you believe that? So her voice went to the sky, but she already felt that, but she was trying to keep it inside. Well, guess what? Even though she spoke in a soft, nice way, I could pick it up. So in other words, your voice reflects everything about you. You can't hide anything. And so if we're true to ourselves, which again, going back to your question, as a man think, if you're true to who you are, why am I feeling like, just be open and honest. I would tell your viewers and listeners, if you're upset about something, don't hide it within yourself. At least be honest with yourself. I'm not saying dump everything on your kids, but within yourself, just go to a quiet place and say, okay, I feel upset. Don't avoid it. Don't say, I'm going to do something else to occupy myself. Say, okay, I'm feeling upset. I'm going to sit with myself in a moment. You're giving importance to yourself, actually. What am I feeling? Ask this question. What am I feeling right now? Don't analyze where it came from. Don't worry about that. I'm feeling anger. Allow yourself to feel the anger. Then say, what am I feeling anger about? I'm feeling anger or sadness or grief or frustration or betrayal or whatever. I'm feeling about this because this person left me abruptly, or I was fired from this job, or whatever it is. Just sit with the emotion, be present with it, and then say, okay, and then breathe through it is what I would say too. There's actually a technique I can share with your listeners that may be helpful. I call it, it's called the box breathing technique. And if you'd like, if your viewers and listeners would like to, it's very brief, but it'll really help. Maybe someone's really upset right now about something that happened in their life. So if you are, or sad, angry, whatever it is, this is what you can do. Sit comfortably, relax your shoulders, right? We usually hold tension in our shoulders. Breathe slowly. Go ahead, all of you listening, breathe slowly. Now you're going to follow this 4-count pattern, okay? Inhale for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale right now. Count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold while you exhale for a count of 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, release. You're going to repeat this for 2 to 4 cycles as needed. Now, while you're doing all this, okay, you're thinking about that issue that happened. Okay, I didn't mention that. So remember to do that, and you'll actually release that stress in that moment. This is better than it accumulating, then to finally a breaking point happens later on. So do it in the moment and do it yourself. This is you can do away from your kids. You want to be open, honest with your kids, but when you're doing this release, you want to do it on your own, in your own private place. Then when you come back to your kids, you're in that grounded place. Does that make sense?
Totally, and I love it. You can actually teach kids that. So when they feel frustrated and angry, they can do this breathing, and it calms their nervous system.
and switches from flight or flight to parasympathetic, which is calm and safe. So it's an amazing tool to kind of break the mood. And I love how you said, instead of accumulating all those negative emotions, just let it release, let it come through you, feel it and let it out, and you'll be so much better
Exactly.
off.
Exactly right.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
No, you really touched on all the key fine points there of what I went through being raised by a single parent, and what I would suggest for if you are a single parent, because I can see it from both sides, and I've worked on so many parents or adults who were kids who went through a challenging situation, with a single parent. Of course, there's some kids, who have gone through emotional and physical abuse and all kinds of other stuff like that. But I was able to help them through that and release those patterns. And then they were actually stronger. Even though they went through those challenges, they became a stronger person after I worked with them, ultimately releasing all those charges and from where they came from, which is always from your childhood, from the time you're born to the time you're 12. And these are imprints from our parents and grandparents, actually. So, but there is hope. No matter what life you had, no matter how much challenge and struggle you went through, this is my message to everyone listening in here. Don't think all is lost, all is hopeless. No. From this day, from this moment onwards, you can take charge. Doing this technique I shared as a starting point, but ultimately when you do that, you can have all the life you want. Peaceful, happy, joyous, everything flowing in your direction, and be able to face whatever comes your way.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. If people would like to connect and learn more about the work that you do, where do they go?
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, if they want to find out more about my work, they can go to my website, which is www.fastanxiety.com. If they go to that website and the first thing you can do is click on the testimonials tab so you can see how so many people benefited, and you may be able to connect to some of them too. And then most importantly, go ahead to the calendar and sign up for a complimentary 15-minute consult with me. I do it through Zoom and no obligations. Go ahead and share with me when we meet anything going on, any challenges, any upsets, whatever is going on in your life. And I will share with you a plan, which I will customize especially for you, of how we can clear that pattern, leading you to whatever you'd want to have in your life.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll include everything in episode notes. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for the work that you are doing and how you were able to turn what was a traumatic experience, losing your dad when he was only 51 years old, to now you were able to heal other people so they didn't have to go through the same difficult situations. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Irina.
If today's conversation reminded you that even life's hardest moments can become turning points, I'd love to invite you to something special. On July 7th, we're launching Reclaim Your Life, The Breaking That Made You New, a collection of inspiring stories of resilience, hope, and transformation. You can also join our Reclaim Your Life book community to read along and connect with others on the journey. You'll find the link in today's show notes. I'd love to welcome you. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation. One of the biggest takeaways from today's episode is this: we can't always choose what happens to us, but we can choose to begin healing from it. Whether you're rebuilding after divorce, navigating single parenthood, or still carrying experiences from years ago, I hope today's conversation reminds you that healing is possible and you don't have to do it alone. If this episode encouraged you, please share it with someone who could use a little hope today. And if you're enjoying single parent success stories, I'd be so grateful if you subscribe and leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, every step you take towards healing creates a stronger future, not just for you, but for the people who love you.